This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at www.thepmpodcast.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to episode number 123. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 18th of July 2009. Nice to have you with us. Would you like to be twice as productive on your projects and still leave the office early? Well, then Peter Taylor has a suggestion for you, and that is become a lazy project manager. In his book, The Lazy Project Manager, he reveals how adopting a more focused approach to life, projects, and work can make you twice as productive. So we will talk about productive laziness and how you can apply Peter's simple techniques and approaches in your own projects. We look at how to manage them from a productive lazy point of view. Peter is not by nature a lazy person, and frankly, neither am I. But both of us have many other things to do in life beyond the projects and the podcasts that we manage. Therefore, Peter's approach helps to balance life, projects, and work. Today's episode is sponsored by Rike. How do you assign tasks and track your team's progress? Calls, emails, and spreadsheets. All that makes you buried in routine work. To get the full insight into projects and save up to 25 hours a month, thousands of project managers worldwide use Rike. To try Rike for free and get an exclusive, limited-time 25% project management podcast discount on your one-year subscription, visit www.rike.com and use PMP as your promo code. As always, when we speak to a published author, you get a chance to win a copy of the book, and it's no different today. All our premium subscribers are, of course, automatically entered into this contest, and one copy is reserved for them. If you are not a premium subscriber, well, then first of all, please consider subscribing to the Premium Project Management Podcast. And second, if you'd like to win a book, then send an email to pmpodcast@gmail.com with the subject lazy. And because today we are lazy, there is absolutely nothing that you have to put into your email at all. As long as your email gets to me by the 29th of July 2009, then you can participate. And here is the last item before we get to the interview with Peter Taylor today. It's the winners of our last contest, where you could win a copy of Mark Perry's book, Business Driven PMO Setup. And our winners are Anthony Warricks. He writes to us from Las Vegas. He's one of the free podcast listeners. And then Stanley Kolodje. He is a premium subscriber who won the copy that is reserved for our premium subscribers. So the books are on their way to both of them. And, of course, congratulations. But now, let's move on to our main interview with the totally and utterly lazy project manager, Peter Taylor. Peter Taylor, PMP, is a commercially astute professional who has achieved notable success in project management, program management, and the professional development of project managers. He currently works as the head of a PMO at Siemens PLM Software, a global supplier of product lifecycle management solutions. He is an accomplished communicator and leader, always adopting a proactive and business-focused approach. And he is the author of The Lazy Project Manager, as well as a professional speaker. Enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcast's feature interview. Today with Peter Taylor, EMEA Director of a PMO at Siemens, PMP, author, and professional speaker.
Hello, Peter, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Wonderful. We are very happy to have you. Today, we want to discuss your new book titled The Lazy Project Manager. I have it right here in front of me, about 140 pages thick, nice, hardcover. You signed it for me and you told me, be lazy. I like that. But of course, lazy, you put lazy in quotation marks. So let's begin with these quotation marks, and let's make sure that people don't get the wrong idea here when you talk about being lazy. Please define what you mean by lazy.
Yep, certainly. That's a good idea. Great place to start. So let me begin with a quote. I do enjoy quotes. Robert Heinlein said, "Progress, it isn't made by early risers. It's made by lazy men trying to find easier ways to do something." And I just love that thought. I love that thought. So the type of lazy I'm referring to is smart lazy. You're right. It's not just lazy, it's smart lazy. They're the sort of approach that links intelligence with an aptitude for reducing the effort applied, but keeping an eye, obviously, on maintaining the quality of outputs. So in the Lazy Project Manager, I refer to this as the art of productive laziness. And so that's the type of lazy I mean.
Okay. Still, it seems a very strange thing to say, productive laziness, because, I mean, considering that, project managers, we are required to be energetic, we have to be go-getters, we have to manage our projects, we have to deliver stuff. How did you become lazy personally?
And I'm taking lazy there to mean a positive thing. That's a compliment. So thank you for that. And that's how I want to portray it. So I think that projects, they often attract people to the role of project manager who are, as you say, energetic, go-getters, busy people. And I'm not saying that they can't be successful. They often are. But they are successful at a considerable personal cost, I think. So behind the art of productive laziness, there's some science. So let me begin with some science behind this theory. And I'm going to get all formal here. So there's a character called Helmuth Karl Bernhard Graf von Moltke, 1800 to 1891. Now, this guy was the German General Field Marshal, and he was chief of the staff of the Prussian army for about 30 years. And is generally widely regarded as one of the great strategists of the latter half of the 1800s and the creator of a new, more modern method of directing armies. Anyway, Moltke had a particular insight to and a particular approach to categorizing his officer corps, something which lives on to this day, in fact, within many armed forces, and something which can apply to all forms of leadership. So if you can try and consider the two ranges of individual characteristics, okay? Those that go from diligent through to lazy, and those that go from non-smart through to smart, and I'm being very politically correct here, so non-smart to smart and diligent to lazy, then what you end up is with four character types. And General von Moltke divided his officer corps into these four distinct types, depending upon their mental and their physical characteristics. So he ended up with type A, which is mentally dull and physically lazy. And there was a second type B, were mentally bright and physically energetic. We'll come back to those. Type C were mentally dull and physically energetic. And type D, mentally bright and physically lazy. So anyway, you mentioned energetic go-getters before. Well, as far as Moltke was concerned, type B officers, who were mentally bright and physically energetic, were considered to be obsessed to a degree of micromanagement, and in his view would, as a result, be poor leaders. So he indicated that promotion was possible over a period of time, but not to the very highest level. These officers were best at making sure orders were carried out and addressing all the detail. So for sure, a certain type of successful project manager. So that's type B. Type D officers, if you remember, they were the mentally bright and yet physically lazy officers.
That's me.
Yeah, that's right. And that's me as well, hopefully. It's who Moltke felt could and should take the very highest levels of command. And he viewed them as a type of officer who was smart enough to see what was needed to be done, and also motivated by an inherent laziness to find the easiest and simplest way to achieve what was required. So you put that in a positive way, they would know how to be successful through the most efficient deployment of effort. So, smart, lazy people, I think, have a real edge over others and are most suited to leadership roles in organizations. And the lazy project manager, it really is all about applying these principles in the delivery and management of projects.
All right.
Yeah. Now, you also said, how did I personally get to be so lazy? Well, I ran a 3-year project many years ago that I approached in that energetic and enthusiastic, go-getting way, and to be honest, it consumed my life. Weekdays, weekends, holidays, etc. It was a very high price to pay from a personal point of view. And when that was all done and dusted, I reflected on the experience and realized that actually I felt very uncomfortable with how I had behaved and how I had managed that project. And the project, I would argue, was successful, but as I said, at a very high cost. And so I decided that I would try and approach future projects in a better way, certainly a way in which I maintained a much, much better work-life balance.
All right. So we've established both you and I are type D. We are mentally smart, but physically lazy. We are looking for the easiest and simplest way to achieve things. And of course, we are now assuming that every single one of our listeners here is also type D. They're all extremely smart people, but they're terribly lazy, right? Because if they weren't lazy, they would probably be reading a book or something like that and not listen to a podcast. All right. So now, let's assume we have all these project managers out there, right? How are we, lazy, smart project managers, now going to implement this productive laziness into our everyday schedules? I mean, after all, we have a project, right? And we have deadlines to meet. We have things to produce. But being lazy definitely means that we're going to miss these deadlines. Now what?
Okay. Well, I'm going to disagree with the about missing the deadlines. I don't think that's actually necessarily true. I think if a project manager can actually elevate themselves through productive laziness to the right level in a project, they're just so much better set up to direct the project, to identify challenges, to make right decisions, and generally meet all those important deadlines. Now, the lazy project manager has some good tips in how to approach each stage of a project in a better way, and it looks at the whole project life cycle from initiation to closure, and for each of the main topics, and we can list them, communications, sponsor management, scope control, all the usual things. It has a how to apply productive laziness to help the reader adapt the way they work. But I do like what you actually said about the podcast. That could be a good direction for lazy, smart people. Maybe I should actually do an audio recording of the book. Although I do try and allow people to cheat in the book and do as little work as possible to learn all the good lessons to be learned.
Yes, you do in fact have your own podcast on iTunes. And let me just quickly open it up here. Yes, if you go to the iTunes store and you look for the Lazy Project Manager, or you look for Peter Taylor, you will definitely find it in iTunes itself. I assume there's also a link to your podcast from your website, thelazyprojectmanager.com, right? Yeah.
That's correct.
So go to thelazyprojectmanager.com and find the podcast there. Peter has 2, 4, 6, 8, if I counted this right. 8 short vignettes there from the book that will tell you a lot more about the book. Now, let's take the theory that you have introduced us to so far, and let's put this into practical application. Give us an example of how you personally use productive laziness to manage your projects.
Okay, no problem. These days, I'm actually a director of a PMO, and within that PMO, I have 100 project managers who work for me. So I just delegate. That's the way I approach it. How lazy is that? Yeah, but seriously, it's all about evolving an approach. I certainly filter an awful lot that comes my way. Yeah, so much communication hits us each day, and much of it is not needed, for example. So by filtering what I actually get involved in and what can be handled by the project team, it just helps keeps me less than 100% busy, which in turn allows me to be proactive about my plans and allows me time to react to critical issues without derailing my everyday work schedule.
All right, that's a very good example. I like it. Who would you say should read your book, The Lazy Project Manager?
Well, the book is aimed at everyone associated with the project. So I'm not aiming this just at project managers.
Okay.
I've really tried to write this in a way that people that aren't dedicated project managers can still read and understand. So I'd say everybody who has an association with a project. Now, it won't teach anyone to become a project manager, but I hope it will help people become better project managers or to understand project management in a better way if they're, if you say, as I say, associated to the project work.
Yes, and you also mentioned this in your as part of your podcast. You say quite clearly it's not a methodology, it's not a way of managing your project. It's more a philosophy of how to take productive laziness and apply it on your projects to be smarter in how you execute your projects.
That's right. I mean, there are plenty enough methodologies and deep reference books out there, so I wouldn't even deem to try and create one of those.
Right. So we talked about who should read it. Who shouldn't read it?
Okay, I have a little note from my publisher here, and in the interest of book sales, I should say that everybody should have a copy. Everybody. As I said, it won't teach people to become project managers. There are other books and training programs that will do this, so don't read it for that purpose. So people who want that's not what the book is for, and it won't help the people in that area. But people should read it to share some experiences that taught me to become a better project manager, and perhaps save themselves some pain. So don't read it if you just want to learn the basics about project management, but do read it if you just want to learn a few life experiences that I've had and a few tips and techniques to be better. All
right, and of course we cannot talk about your book without also talking about the Brontosaurus. Yes, the dinosaur Brontosaurus. How do they apply to productive laziness? Tell us about it.
Okay, I'm glad we get to talk about the Brontosaurus. It's one of my favourite parts, and we're probably scaring the audience right now. As a Monty Python fan, there is one sketch that I've always enjoyed, and that is of Miss Anne Elk painfully describing her theory of Brontosauruses. And very briefly, the theory is all about them being thin at one end, much, much thicker in the middle, and then thin again at the other end. And that's the joke. It's not too much of a theory.
All right, let me interrupt you right here, because sure. I have Miss Anne Elk ready to play. So why don't we take a minute or so and we listen in to Monty Python and Miss Anne Elk and how she explains, or he rather, it is of course one of the Monty Python guys playing Miss Anne Elk, and how they explain the Brontosaur theory. Here we go.
My theory that belongs to me is as follows. The next thing I'm going to say is my theory. Ready? My theory by A.L. brackets Miss brackets. This theory goes as follows and begins now. All Brontosauruses are thin at one end, much, much thicker in the middle, and then thin again at the far end. That is my theory. It is mine and belongs to me, and I own it and what it is too.
That's it, is it?
Spot on, Chris.
Well, and this theory of yours appears to have hit the nail on the head.
And it's mine.
Yes. Thank you very much for coming along to the studio. Thank you.
My pleasure, Chris.
Fantastic. As I said, I'm a Python fan, and that one always really gets me, and I think it's great. Anyway, it also struck me that actually many project managers viewed their projects in the same way. That is the fact that they are thick in the middle, and with all the work and effort happening in the execute and control stage.
Yes.
And my personal view is that's wrong. That's wrong. The effort really should be at the start and at the end of a project, with some seriously relaxing time in the middle in the comfy chair of life, which I think all project managers should actually have a nice comfy chair. I certainly have. So my theory is that projects are thick at one end, they're much, much thinner in the middle, and then thick again at the other end.
How do you explain this to people? Why do you turn it the other way around than what every single textbook will tell you?
It seems to me logic. It is logic that you put effort in to set a project up. I mean, at the very beginning, and I learned that quite early on, that actually the effort you put in at the very front end. And there's another theme within the book, which is the Pareto, the 80-20 rule. I just found that if you by throwing effort in at the beginning of the project and setting everything else up, it was far more likely to be successful. And for example, if you're going on a journey, you do the research, you get the maps out. I mean, life is easier with sat-nav for sure these days, but you prepare yourself for that journey, and you do all the work and all the research, and you make yourself a drink, and you make sure the car's fully gassed up, etc. And you do the effort at the beginning, and it gives you success. Now, I learned that quite early on. Now, what I've learned in more recent years is actually the value of the effort at the back end. And I'm a strong advocate these days of a project retrospective at the end of a project, because I have learnt that I can actually learn so much at the end of a project that I didn't understand or appreciate during the project life cycle. So on that basis, I would still maintain and argue that it is thick at one end, thick at the other end, and in the middle you should be cruising is probably the wrong word, but you should be in control and having a very light touch on the project. Okay.
Let's take it from here once again to the very, very high level, up high. So give us once again your thoughts on the productive, lazy approach to managing our projects. What's going on?
Okay, so it's all about focusing effort in the right place and at the right time and making it count. So back again, 80-20 rule. Always remember that 80% of outcome can be achieved with 20% of effort. So focus strongly on that 20%. Another quote, Woody Allen once said that actually 80% of success was just turning up. Now, I'm not so sure about that. I have actually seen projects that physically had a project manager, but you would never actually have guessed it based on the project progress. But going back, focus the right effort in the right place and combine your intelligence with a move towards laziness, and you will, I believe you really will achieve productive laziness in your project work and make life better for you. Back to that work-life balance.
Let's end our discussion here with your advice to other project managers out there. What would you say are maybe the top 2-3 things that all project managers can do tomorrow as they go back to work to be twice as productive and still leave the office early, as the subtitle of your book indicates?
Okay, yes. So interestingly, and I've touched on this already, the book itself allows readers to cheat.
Yes.
And get straight to the core advice. After all, I am trying to teach people to be lazy, so I've incorporated that in the book. I think you get to chapter 4 or something like that, and you can go straight to the end and learn the essence. So top 3 things to be twice as productive and still leave the office early. Well, I think you can buy the book. People should buy the book for themselves. They should buy the book for everyone else on the project, and then they can book me as a speaker as soon as possible.
Oh, so that was already 3 things, right?
That's 3 things. Fantastic. Kidding again. Well, only sort of. The top 3 things. Well, consider the project life cycle. Yeah, in my approach, it's, as I said, we've gone through that. It's thick at one end, thinner in the middle, thick again at the other end. So at the start, I really feel getting ahead of the game is critical, and that's the title of one of the chapters, Getting Ahead of the Game. Start as you mean to go, and it's about stamping your authority on the project. And, we all receive projects in many different ways. They are initiated by ourselves, they are initiated by other people, they come through a PMO, many ways. But actually, at the point in time you become project manager, it's your project. You have the authority to drive that project through and manage it. So stamp your authority on the project from the very first moment and educate your project team on what you expect from them. Now, in the middle, don't forget to have some fun. Professional and appropriate fun, of course, but, happy team is a very productive team, I found, and having that right level of fun and community and team working is just great, and you end up in a very productive environment. And then at the end, and absolutely, I've always said it, always complete a project retrospective. Do it as lightly as you can practically do it, or do it as deeply as you can. But I've just found that the project retrospectives are wonderful tools to learn what you didn't know from the project. From your point of view as a project manager, but of course you're leading the project team, and many other people have views and insights into what actually went on during the project life cycle.
Lovely. I think you may have just changed how many projects are going to be run tomorrow.
Fantastic. I hope so.
Once again, the book is called The Lazy Project Manager, How to Be Twice as Productive and Still Leave the Office Early. It is written by Peter Taylor and is available through Infinite Ideas. And of course, we do have a link to the book in our show notes. Peter, thank you so much for coming on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that was our interview with Peter Taylor on his new book, The Lazy Project Manager. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. And please don't forget to send an email to me if you would like to win a copy of Peter's book. And of course, if you like our podcast, then please forward it to your friends, your co-workers, project management colleagues, or anyone else who might enjoy it and help us grow the number of our listeners. As always, you can find us on the web at thepmpodcast.com. If you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching over 38 hours of video training from pmprepcast.com. And if you are already a PMP, then stop by at pmlectures.com. Here we go beyond just delivering PDUs. We give you exclusive training from the brightest minds in project management today, and we just recently released a new lecture with Jack Ferraro titled Build Your Service-Based Project Leadership Skills. Please send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com, and when you write, yes, please do tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. Education is what you get when you read the project charter. Experience is what you get when you don't read it. Until next time.
Okay, he's a PMO at Siemens, a PMP, author, and professional speaker. Okay, yeah, I think I've got it.
Okay. I think she's got it. I think she's got it.
You want to do the whole song or just that part?
Just that part.
Okay, Peter, we've got you this time.